I think Alice may have already revealed Genshin's ending, and Asmodee may have just handed us some very important proof. And now, more than ever, I really believe Traveler needs to become the new Heavenly Principles. I know you've heard me say this already and you're going to keep hearing me say crazy things, but hear me out with this theory. What Alice says about the Abyss might have finally explained how fate works. Why the siblings' so-called war with destiny makes sense, why Teyvat keeps producing the very thing that threatens to destroy it, and what kind of answer the Traveler may eventually need if this story is going to end without the whole world collapsing.
We interrupt this lore spiral to bring you news from today's sponsor.
Today's video is sponsored by PlayStation and the 7 Deadly Sins Origin, a brand new open-world action RPG set in the world of 7 Deadly Sins, telling an original story through Tristan during the untold period between the 7 Deadly Sins and 4 Nights of the Apocalypse. What makes it so exciting is that it turns Britannia into a huge world you can actually explore, with climbing, gliding, underwater exploration, fast-paced action, and a lineup of characters that makes the whole thing feel like a new era for the series. The combat is fast, flashy, and built around team building, tag-based battles, and combination skills that let different heroes and weapons completely change how fights feel. I also like that it's not just about solo exploration either, because you can team up with friends, explore together, and take on boss encounters as a group, which makes the world feel even bigger. If you love character-driven action and seeing fan-favorite heroes alongside new original characters, this really feels like the next evolution of the 7 Deadly Sins. What makes this even better is that the 7 Deadly Sins Origin is available free on PS5, and PS5 is the exclusive console platform. It was built to feel like a true next-gen RPG experience with lightning-fast load times, ultra-smooth performance, Unreal Engine 5 visuals, and DualSense haptics, and adaptive triggers that add more impact to every swing, clash, and spell. Play for free now on PS5 using the link in the description and pinned comment down below. Thank you so much PlayStation and the 7 Deadly Sins Origin for sponsoring this video. In the Luna 5 event, Homeward He Who Caught the Wind, Alice says something we had never heard before.
The essence of the abyss lies in the hatred carried by all the fates that will not come to pass.
And that line changes everything. Up until now, the Abyss to us was this evil corruption or forbidden knowledge, a hostile force from beyond Teyvat. But Alice gives it a much deeper definition. In her words, what the Abyss really is at its core is hatred born from possibilities that were never allowed to become real. She explains that with a small example. If Alice chooses Sweet Madame for lunch, then the version of Alice who chose tea break pancakes instead is gone. That possibility doesn't become real. So every time one thing happens, something else doesn't. One reality is selected and another is discarded. And that tells us a lot about how fate works. Because when Alice says fates that will not come to pass, she makes fate sound much less like one rigid script and much more like a plethora of possibilities. Different routes can exist. Different versions of events can be possible. But some major outcomes still seem fated to happen no matter which path you take. Fate itself seems to favor certain outcomes. Take Varka, for example. The Hex and Circle basically describe a possible version of Mondstadt's history where Varka becomes the hero who faces Dvalin. But in the reality we know, Varka has already gone on an expedition to Nodcry, so that version of events doesn't happen. But it's implied that Dvalin wouldn't have simply escaped his fate forever. Another hero would have come to save Mondstadt instead. Another painful version of the same general outcome would have happened. And once you understand fate that way, Alice's explanation of the Abyss gets much darker. Because if fate keeps selecting one version of reality, then what happens to everything it doesn't choose? Alice's answer is that those denied possibilities don't just simply vanish. Their rejection becomes hatred. And if that's true, then the Abyss is not just an outside threat. It's also a byproduct of how Teyvat is built. The problem may be that the world itself keeps producing abyssal hatred every time it narrows countless possibilities down into one accepted reality. What makes this even crazier is that the Abyss doesn't seem to be exclusive to Teyvat at all. Skirk's backstory makes it sound like the Abyss exists across other planets too. Although on Skirk's planet, her people had a special adaptability that allowed them to come into contact with the Abyss much more safely than normal. In Teyvat, it seems to become especially violent because of how this world handles fate, truth, and rejection. Alice says that part of her job is maintaining the stability of Teyvat's border, that abyssal energies lie beyond it, and that disturbances there cause those strange phenomena around Nogcry. At first, you might think that just means the false sky, but after what she says in Mondstadt, the border starts sounding like more than just a barrier between us and outer space. It may be the boundary between accepted reality and all rejected realities. Alice even says that in the bubble world, some of those unchosen fates came very close to reality, and that is when the abyss showed its teeth. So the danger is not only that denied possibilities exist, but rather what happens when they get too close to becoming real. And if hatred of those denied possibilities is what the core of the abyss is, then the siblings' goals start to look very different. The sibling says their war with destiny will not end until the abyss has engulfed the thrones. But after Alice's explanation, it starts sounding like someone who believes the world is unjust at the level of its design. Someone who thinks fate is not just cruel sometimes, but unfair by design. But this doesn't make the Abyss order fully right. Alice is still very clear that the Abyss in its current form is destructive. It doesn't seek healthy coexistence, it seeks ruin. And the Abyss order seems to echo that sentiment to a certain degree. But Alice's line makes the sibling side more understandable. It suggests the sibling may be right about the problem even if they are using the wrong method to solve it. And nowhere is that clearer than with Khaenri'ah. With this logic, we can theorize that the sibling seems to believe Khaenri'ah's rightful future was denied, and through the loom of fate, they're trying to force that lost reality back into the world. That's why the loom of fate matters so much to them. It's an attempt to use memories and ley lines to make the rejected reality where Khaenri'ah still peacefully exists real again. But Hayden immediately warns that after 500 years, their memories are damaged, and a world woven from broken memories would itself be broken. That warning is super important. The answer isn't just to bring back those denied realities at any cost, because the consequence of that could be catastrophic. There's probably a reason certain realities were denied in the first place, and that is where the three possible paths show up. Either 1, we keep the current world order and keep everything as is, or 2, we force the denied fates to exist simultaneously even though the results may be a catastrophic multiverse of some sorts. So the Traveler may be the only viable third path, an entirely new outcome, an unpredictable variable, if you will. This possibility makes sense because the Traveler is a descender. Descenders are beings who can transcend Teyvat's laws and influence its fate. And that brings us to the part that may matter way more than people realize. Memory. Because in Genshin, memory is part of the world's architecture. Irminsul is the repository or database of Teyvat's information and memories. And those memories are gathered through the ley lines. That means memory in Teyvat is part of how the world stores what counts as reality. When things are deleted or altered in the Irminsul, the world itself reflects that change. And if rejected fates become the Abyss, while memory is one of the ways Teyvat keeps reality stable, then the real issue is in the way the world is designed. Zhongli says the Traveler can act as a backup of sorts for the times and tides of Teyvat. That's a huge clue. Teyvat can lose or rewrite its own truth, but the Traveler can still remember it. And if the Abyss comes from the possibilities the world rejects, then the Traveler may be the only one who can still remember what was lost and use that truth to help create a better system. That's also why I think you can't just store denied fates in Irminsul, because Irminsul is part of the world's active memory system. And if incompatible memories can leak back into reality, then putting all those denied fates there could just cause so many problems. We might fry Teyvat's circuits with all that information processing, basically. Alice's Mondstadt explanation shows why that is dangerous. The Abyss appeared when unchosen fates got too close to becoming real. The real problem is, how do we acknowledge these denied fates or let them represent in reality without letting them overwrite the current world? In Genshin, we've actually seen quote-unquote prototypes for what a new world system could look like. The Sacred Sakura in Inazuma shows that a secondary divine tree network can also exist and help stabilize the world without simply replacing the original one. Its network absorbs filth, purifies the land, and keeps dangerous buildup contained even if that buildup still needs maintenance. Then Natlan gives us another example with the Night Kingdom. After Natlan's original ley lines were badly damaged, the Lord of the Night used fragments of the old ley lines to reconstruct a similar network. It became a parallel system with different rules. It means a new world memory system can be rebuilt from fragments and configured differently from the main one. Then you have the Loom of Fate, which is the dangerous version of a similar idea. It proves memory can be used as material for rebuilding reality. It might prove that denied worlds can be pushed back toward existence, but it might also prove how badly that can go if the source memory is broken. And then there's another clue with Durin, which may be one of the most important hints in the entire story. Durin was initially rejected by Minsleif, but later the Hexenzirkel and the Traveler took steps that allowed him to be accepted as a different entity. That means the world's acceptance rules can change. Something that did not fit before can later be recognized under a new framework. All of this could lead us to the true ending of Genshin. Not deleting the abyss, not letting every denied reality flood back into the current reality, but changing the rules so that the fates that were automatically rejected no longer have to return as hatred. And this is exactly why the Temple of Space feels so huge right now, because Asmodee may have already realized something that we didn't before. The Temple of Space is described as a repository of fragments created by Asmodee, the ruler of space. It makes me wonder if this realm means Asmodee may have already figured out how to keep rejected realities from crashing the world. But her answer seems to be stasis, to freeze it and archive it, which seems like a practical answer, but not a compassionate one. It keeps the problem contained, but it doesn't necessarily make things right. Because I don't think the final solution is a bunch of parallel universes happily running next to Teyvat in their own little realms. Genshin's own system suggests something more careful than either total reintegration or total erasure. That's why Traveler may need to rise to become the new heavenly principles, or at least to the same level of authority. If the current world order keeps allowing the production of abyssal hatred, then the ending may require someone to rewrite the rules of Teyvat to fix it. Traveler may need to create a new set of rules for the world, where rejected fates no longer have to become hatred in the first place. A new order where denied fates can be acknowledged without being erased, but also without being allowed to crash directly into the current reality. Because of their unique memory and their ability to preserve the absolute truth, the Traveler may be the only one who can remember what was lost, refuse both the old order's unfair system of fate and the abyss's destructive nature, and build a system that no longer turns rejection into hatred. There needs to be a combination of Teyvat's current systems, perhaps, in order to create a new place where denied fates can be preserved and acknowledged under new rules without being allowed to directly overwrite the current world. Teyvat is a world that keeps choosing one reality and throwing the rest away, and that is always going to create a huge problem. So maybe the ending of Genshin isn't simply the Traveler versus the Abyss, or the Traveler versus the Heavenly Principles. Maybe it's Traveler finally creating a world that no longer has to turn rejected realities into abyssal energy, and stopping the cycle that Teyvat is trapped in once and for all. But there is something we don't have an answer to yet. If their Traveler and their sibling are able to absorb abyssal energy, where does it go? If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm your leafy lore keeper Minsleif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to.